Okay, this is the second part of the assignment 2 video tutorial. So I'm going to show you now how to take the HTML marked up resume file and add some CSS to make it look even better. So the first thing, I'm going to assume that you have completed the markup of the entire file. So it's the whole thing, the whole resume is very neatly done with HTML, sort of like I have here, and this is in PHP Storm. I'm going to select all here, and then I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to switch over to LiveWeave because I want to use LiveWeave for this demonstration of what I'm doing because it'll show the results quicker. You're also welcome to use LiveWeave if you want to use LiveWeave for this part, and then you can copy and paste the code um, back into PHP Storm to upload it to your website. So the first thing I'm going to do, this is the LiveWeave page that comes up by default. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this little bit of CSS code over here because I don't want it clogging up what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to take this little horizontal bar between the top left and the bottom left pane, and I'm just going to drag that all the way down because I'm going to put my CSS directly into my HTML here for this assignment, and I don't need that messing me up. The second thing I'm going to do is, because I don't need any JavaScript, I'm going to drag this other pane up to make this JavaScript in the upper right hand corner completely disappear. So now on the left I have just HTML, and on the right I have just the live view of the page. So the next thing I'm going to do is copy and paste my HTML, which I got from PHP Storm. I'm going to paste it right into here. And what you should see on the right should look something like this. It might look a little bit different because you might not have done the exact same markup that I did, but it should look fairly similar. So we've got all of the HTML here and the product of that on the right. So the next thing you should do is make a little space here on this side right after title, but before the end tag of the heading block. And we're going to put the style tags in here just like this. So you can see we've got the two style tags, and all of my CSS is going to go in there. So let's test this out and make sure that we're on the right track. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this heading up here. So I'm going to use the tag-based selector to tell it to make changes to anything in the document that is within H1 tags. And for this document, that means only this main heading that says resume for Maxine Kent. So I'm going to say H1, just like that. And then I'm going to use curly braces. And I'm going to hit enter so there's a space in between them, because I like to put my CSS code with each element on its own line. It's just better. It's more readable, and it's easier for me to come back and find things later. So let's play around with this. Let's start with something simple. I'm going to type color equals red, not equals. It's just the colon. Okay, so instead of equal signs, you're going to do color colon red, and then each line should have a semicolon at the end of it. And you can see over here on this side, presto, it's already changed. So we know it's working. We know that these sides are talking to each other and things are going the way they're supposed to. Now, I don't want just red here. That's kind of ugly. So I'm going to go for a darker red color. And you can see we've got a list here. This is something LiveWeave does. It pops up all of these color names. Many of them I couldn't tell you what they are, but fire brick kind of sounds like a dark red, so I'm going to go with that, and indeed it is. That's a little classier for a resume, I think. So let's add some other things here. Let's change the font. So I'm going to use font family for that. Oops, forgot my semicolon. That's why it's freaking out on me. There we go, font family. And I'm going to use Calibri, which is a sans serif font. And notice when I put Calibri in here, I get a whole list of different fonts that starts with Calibri, but then it has other fonts. And what it's doing here is it's listing other fonts that are similar to Calibri, because if the user who's viewing this web page doesn't have Calibri on their computer, they're not going to see it in Calibri. And if I don't have other ones listed, then I will have to deal with whatever the user has on their computer, which could be just very random, or it could be like a Times New Roman, which is the default. So we don't want it to default to anything ugly. So by listing all of these, it helps us make sure the user sees something similar to what we're intending. So let's continue on here. And I'm going to put this in a box. Now, an H1 is a block level element, which means there's an invisible box around this that goes the full width of the page. And I want to expose the border of that because I want to use that for decoration. So I'm going to put border. And you can see here it makes a suggestion for me. The first thing you want to do is tell it how many pixels wide the border is. I'm going to go 2 pixels. And then you can go solid, dashed, dotted for the style of the line. I'm going to go solid. And I'm going to go dark gray, which a good dark gray color is in the hex code 3333, 6 threes. So it's all that level. Anything that's all the same number or letter all the way across is going to be a variation of gray, because that's what you get when you put all three red, green, and blue the same strength. For more information on colors, check out the link in this assignment or in this module so that you can learn how colors work, and that way you can put together colors that look good. Now, so that it's not crowding, the text, I'm going to put a little bit more padding, which is the space between the text and the border. Now I can just do 15 pixels, and it'll do 15 pixels all around, or I can specify each side. I can go 10 pixels on top, 15 pixels on the right, 10 pixels on the bottom, and 15 on the left. And that gives me a little bit more balanced look. And it always starts at the top and goes around clockwise by the 4 coordinates. So top, right, bottom, left. And anytime you specify the 4 sides of anything, it's always that way in CSS. So that's just a good thing to remember. It starts at midnight and goes around the clock to 3, 6, and 9. Now I'm going to do something a little bit fancier, and I'm going to do a border radius. And what a border radius does is it makes the corners a little curved. So I'm going to start with 5 pixels, and you can see there's a slight curve. And if I go to 10, it becomes a little bit bigger. And I'll just go to 20 just to show you what it looks like. Then it makes it look really round. I'm going to go back to 10 because I like how that looks. Okay. One more thing I'm going to do here on this block is I'm going to center the text. So text align center. That centers the text in that block. And the last thing I'm going to do is background color. Background color, I can choose from that list to save myself a little time, and then a nice light gray. So if I go all the way to 9, or 1 to 9, and then we start at A and go through F for lightness, I'm going to do D's all the way across, which is a nice light color. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now I can start working on some of these other things. But here's a little cheat that I can do. If I wanted all of my headings to be that color and that font, I can actually take that out of there. And notice that disappears for a minute. But if I go H1, H2, H3, then all of my headings all the way down through H3 are going to take on whatever I put in here. I'm just going to paste that back in there. And now you can see it's pretty powerful. I've already styled all of my headings all the way through the document. So what's a CSS doing? It's saying all of these headings have this color and this font. And then in addition to that, anything that's an H1, which is just this top one, has these attributes. So that's another way to sort of layer or cascade your style sheets to be more just more efficient, really. So I've shown you how to do a tag-based selector. I'm going to show you how to do an ID-based selector. And I'm going to come down just to this paragraph element, and I'm going to give it an ID. I'll call it contact info, because that's what it is. Okay, and just giving it an ID doesn't do anything. But now, instead of using the tag, because I can't use paragraph because everything is in paragraphs down here. If I want to address just this piece, I can say contact info, and I can, let's say, center that text as well. And I don't like how much space is in between this, so I'm going to actually change the margin to 0, see if that does anything. Okay, so it doesn't do anything. I'm actually going to go negative 10 pixels, and now it's actually moved up past where the margin of that paragraph is. So the margin of the border of that paragraph is probably like right here, but since it's invisible, I can move it up, and that'll scoot it closer to that heading, which I like. I just like how that looks better. Okay, so the last thing, let's go back and let's hit up these paragraphs. I'm going to copy this font because I want to use that font down here. I'm going to do a tag-based selector. I'm going to add that font. And now all of my paragraphs, and I also want my list items, so all of my lists here, to have that look. And that looks really nice. Now I'm starting to get somewhere. So that gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do. And I think these are H4s down here. So probably going to have to do something about these because they still kind of look a little grubby, and I'd probably do something with the vertical spacing, maybe do some lines or borders to separate this document a little bit. But it's starting to get there. It's starting to take shape. So I like how that looks, and I think that gives you enough to sort of get started.